Welcome to another episode of Code for Thought. I'm your host, Jacqueline Laird, the Communications Officer at the Software Sustainability Institute. Today I'm joined by Shoaib Sufi and Rachael Ainsworth, who are from our community team, and they organise, among many things, our collaborations workshop and have put together an event organisation guide.
Hello.
Hi.
So you've both worked on our event organisation guide. Can you tell us a bit about what the guide is and how it came about?
So we've been running events at the Software Sustainability Institute since the very beginning, since the organisation which preceded the Software Sustainability Institute. And so we wanted a way of capturing that learning around timelines, around things that we needed to check. So back in 2018, it was the idea of the director for us to write down and collect the information that we were using about organising events so that we could reuse that and make event planning more efficient for the different types of events that we run. So that started the ball rolling with the SSI's event organisation guide. So the guide started originally as a Google Doc where we were collecting information about what we did. And there were links out to some of the templates that we'd produced. For example, a template timeline of what to do when organising an event, a template for different roles at the event, and a budget template, how to assess a venue. And then fast forwarding, we moved from that platform to using restructured text and Sphinx. We had a slight detour into GitHub Pages, but we needed a system which would mean that we didn't have to keep looking after templates as Read the Docs as a system and Sphinx as a system. They look after things like that. They're built for documentation to allow us to focus on content. So it was a bit of an on-off activity, given that there was a lot of other work on, but we were able to put this together, put a review process together, and using GitHub Flow, and it was very much a team effort between the community team and the comms team and even the training team to bring the guide out. So it really takes a project management based approach and a stage gate based approach. And it also moved into the area of an in practice section, so people were able to submit. We documented how we'd used the guide on various events, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, I think.
And how would you say the SSI has evolved in terms of its event organisation, learning from previous events, listening to feedback?
One thing that has happened is that we've been able to incorporate learnings from different types of events, not just collaborations workshop, but also Carpentry Connect, and also some of our events around training. So we've tried to collate the information that's in those. We've even looked at larger events such as RSE Con, which SSI was involved in. That's not reflected in the guide at the moment, but we're very reflective as an organisation, and we try to take best practice and bring that in. I think one of the great things about having this written down is that you don't have to redo the thinking. We're not doing this all of the time. We are doing this intensely and then moving on to other tasks, for example, the fellowship or policy work or open science work. And so when you pick it up again, because you're not doing it all the time, you'll forget. And so it gives you that peace of mind that you can relearn those things quickly and get yourself up to speed. Each year we will reflect on what we've done and see if there's any major changes. For example, the stage gate, we're using a different mechanism now for the stage gates. What I mean by stage gates is the three stages in the event organisation guide: the idea stage, the feasibility stage, and then the event project stage. So the idea stage is just really about the idea. The feasibility is like, now we're serious about this event and we need to make some financial commitments. And then obviously the event stage, you're planning the event. So there's some changes needed between those different stages that we found in practice, which will hopefully be reflected in future versions of the guide.
Yeah, just to build off of what Shoaib said about, it really allows us to, work really intensely on, an event for a while and then move on to something else and then come back and pick it back up again the next year. Because a lot of our events are recurring and we kind of build off of them each year. But because they are so repetitive, it allows us to kind of automate a lot of those processes and then provides a lot of room for, innovation and that space for improvement as well, and incorporating that feedback from the previous year without kind of starting all over from scratch. We can just, take the templates that we already have, enhance them, build off of them, and then, hopefully deliver a much improved event.
And was the guide inspired by any other resources that you've seen or used?
What became clear to me is that events are projects. So if you're doing an event, you're doing a project, and that makes you a project manager. Even though in the guide itself we don't use the term project manager, we use the term more specialized term event lead. But essentially you're the project manager. So I have an interest and training in project management first in Prince 2 and then in the Project Management Institute's project management professional. So it was really kind of feeding back some of the comments from some of the ways of thinking from there, especially in terms of the stages and, closing things down neatly, getting the mandate. So all of those things, so things were clear. And also, I think one of the things that we were doing implicitly, which really reflected that, was all the stakeholder management. The fact that there's a lot of people involved, from the people who okay the finances to people's availability, to the venue's requirements, to people on the steering group who are going to promote this, who want to have their name against it, will have their name against it and promote this to their communities to help make this a successful and attended event, for example. So yeah, I'd say some of the project management guides were certainly an inspiration.
Additionally, some of the templates, in particular, some of the ones that we've done for the in-practice chapters of the guides for collaborations workshops 2020 and 2021. When we first moved online, we were inspired by online events that we had attended in the past, such as, the Mozilla Open Leaders cohort calls. They had a really brilliant infrastructure for facilitating online calls. And so that largely inspired a lot of the infrastructure that we set up for the kind of online versions of the event.
Who is the event organisation guide useful for? And would you have advice you'd like to give to people who are at different levels of event planning? So there might be some people who are brand new to planning events, and there might be people coming in with lots of experience. How can they make the most of the guide?
It's useful for anyone who's organising events, whether in person or online. If you have different experience levels, the guide is useful for you. There's two aspects to this. One is, how was the event? And the other one is, how did you organise the event? So how was the event is often covered in blog posts or reports. This is what happened at the event. This was people's experience of the event. But how you organise the event was a separate matter. So the in-practice section for the guide covers how people organise the event. So this is a great place to have a look at what was actually done at various stages. So, the guide to see what people have done, what we did concretely, rather than just talking in terms of conceptual matters. But it is an easy read. And if you have a look, there's some excellent infographics done by our comms team too. And they give you a brief overview of how the guide sits together. And if you have a read through and see what's useful. If you're organising if you're organising an event which is just a small event and you're in charge of the budget, you're in charge of everything, you can go straight to the event project stage. If you're organising a larger event, then you might want to look at the feasibility stage. If you're organizing an event which is totally new, just your idea, but you need sign off from people, then look at the whole thing, the idea stage, going forward. Also, it might be that you're not holding this massive event, but you can look through the different types of templates that are there and to see which ones are relevant for you. There might be things around a venue which might be relevant for you, or roles that might be relevant for you, or for online events and even in-person events, the kind of daily documents, the agenda-driven documents that people can collaboratively work on have been used extensively. These were inspired by other programs and then refined by Rachael, but they are really they have an art to them, and they've been very useful.
Just to build off of what Shoaib said, especially if you are just starting, to organize a new event, or you are looking into starting events, I think the early stages under, idea exploration and feasibility, in particularly setting the goals and objectives of the event, is really important and really the first place you should be starting, because it will essentially drive the rest of how you plan your event. So, once you've identified your goals and objectives for why you want to do this event and what you hope to achieve by running the event, then everything else will be informed by that, and you won't just be running an event for the sake of running an event.
So the communications team have used the event organisation guide to help plan our research software camps, which are 2-week online events, and each one focuses on a different aspect of research software. They are much smaller scale events than collaborations workshops. And so when we've used the guide to help with planning, we can just pick and choose the sections which are more relevant to us, because it's so comprehensive that we don't really need actually all of the sections. And that's the really good thing. It's very easy to navigate. You can just find the sections that you need to use. Our communications manager, Selena Aragon, wrote a blog post about how we used the guide to deliver our very first camp, which took place in March last year, and looked at research accessibility. I'll share the link to that blog post in the podcast description if you want to see how we applied the guide to that event. And I'll take this moment to plug our upcoming event, which is our next research software camp taking place from the 7th to the 18th of November. And that will explore the topic of mental health in research software. So we'll be sharing lots of resources on our website and social media. We'll also be running 2 live sessions, one of which is a panel discussion on managing stress in research software. And we're also running a workshop on befriending your inner critic. Both of these sessions are free, online, open to anyone interested in mental health in research software, and registration is open. Again, I'll share the links to that in the description of this podcast. Could you tell us a bit about how you have used the event organisation guide to help plan collaborations workshops?
So we have written extensive in-practice chapters on how we use the event organization guide, in particular in how we ran Collaborations Workshop 2020, which we ran online for the first time, and then how we ran it again in 2021 and where we improved on it. So the event organization guide was extremely useful for me as the community manager and the event lead for this event, because it was effectively a handover document. It had documented, all of the experience that had been done in organizing Collaborations Workshop in previous years. There were lots of templates for me to use. So it was a really easy way to kind of just get stuck into organizing the event. So in the in-practice guides, in particular for CW20, we had to pivot that event to run from an in-person event to an online event rather quickly at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we used this in-practice guide as an opportunity to say, how we made that change, what changes we made and why we made them, and whether or not it worked, and what the lessons learned were. For 2021 Collaborations Workshop, we started organizing it as a virtual event from the feasibility stage. So we were able to actually document all of those decisions that we made from feasibility to closing throughout Collaborations Workshop 2021. And this was a really great way to reflect on the event, as well as share what we did and how we did it and what we learned from it. So for me, kind of the most useful sections are, particularly the timeline. It's basically a giant checklist of what needs to happen when. So it's a really great way to kind of organize yourself, in the year leading up to the event. I find the feasibility stage extremely useful for just reminding ourselves, what the ultimate goals and objectives of Collaborations Workshop are, and making sure that, we tailor the audience, to our themes, and everything around it, evolves around the themes of that year's event. But it also helps us to align it with what the Institute is doing as well. And so having that all documented, even though it is quite similar year on year, it really shows how we make those changes year on year as well, and where we innovate. And yeah, other things about the event organization guide that I personally find really useful, like I said, are all the templates, and also kind of, drafting publicity schedules, so I know what I need to get to the communications team when, as well as, outlining the different event roles so that we can get those assigned in a reasonable amount of time, and train people as necessary. So yeah, that's how I use the event organization guide, and the sections that I find the most useful.
And looking forward, so the next Collaborations Workshop is going to be hybrid, so that you have to pivot all over again. Hopefully you'll be documenting that for a future in-practice section of the guide to help other people move to hybrid events.
Absolutely. I think there will be a lot of challenges on the road to organizing this hybrid event, especially because Collaborations Workshop is so highly interactive. It's not just setting up a stream of talks and maybe collecting questions via, Slido or a similar service, but we really need to be able to facilitate, equitable interaction and participation from both in-person and online attendees. So that's where a lot of the challenge will be. That's where a lot of the cost will be. So we hope to be able to document this so that it's useful for our community to use going forward. The next Collaborations Workshop, so Collaborations Workshop 2023, is taking place as a hybrid event from Tuesday the 2nd of May to Thursday the 4th of May 2023. And our theme is quite a broad one, but one that we found to be quite important to our community. So it's sustainable career development for those in the research software community, looking after your software, your career, and yourself. And the theme encompasses kind of three main topics. So it encompasses technical development, such as, software sustainability, how to decide what to learn next, and where to go for that improvement and development skills. The next is around career development. So this can include career pathways related to research software. So we've got quite a large research software engineering community, things such as how to get credit for your work, mentorship, and inclusive leadership to support teamwork. And then the final pillar is around personal development. So, including sustaining your mental health, well-being, and finding community. And the way this theme came around is that, we solicited feedback from previous Collaborations Workshop participants, as well as Software Sustainability Institute fellows and staff, to find out kind of what topics are most important to them right now. And we got quite a lot of suggestions back, which was absolutely brilliant. And this allowed us to try and incorporate as many of those as possible to really focus on what's important to the community. So we believe the in-person element will be taking place in Manchester, where I'm based, just to help with the ease of organization for our first hybrid event. And then, of course, we are incorporating that hybrid and remote element. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
How can people contribute to the events organization guide?
So it's on GitHub, it's openly licensed, and we have a contributing guide. So even if you find a bug or an issue in the templates or in the text, you can raise an issue and say, I don't think this is consistent, for example. The next level up would be to use the guide in practice and put in an in practice section. You don't have to use the infrastructure, the restructured text and Sphinx and everything. We're happy to take a Google Doc in an issue ticket, and we will credit you appropriately. And don't be afraid if you've only used a bit of it. Any use of it, extensive use of it, small use of it, even critique of it as a whole is very useful for us to hear, because we want to keep it alive and as a living document. One of the things that's really important for us at SSI, at Software Sustainability Institute, and in the guide, is to give credit for people for the work that they've done. So you'll see that there's an authors list for the guide itself, and you can also see that we have highlighted other contributors. For example, people who've contributed ideas, people who've helped with typos and with that sort of help. So we try to make sure that we give people credit, because that's really important. It's part of the culture that the Institute tries to adhere to. You'll also notice that if you look through the guide, it links out to templates. And those templates, majority of them, we've put them on Zenodo. There's some on Figshare as well, where we've highlighted people who are authors. You might see some people who are authors on there that aren't authors on the guide, because those templates themselves have been contributed to by different people, so we credit them. And also in the in practice section will be authored by particular individuals, and they get then added to the authors list if you're even if you contributing an in practice section, because we see it as a holistic whole, because the guide is the guide itself plus its use as one unit. I want to come on to an important point about the event organization guide in terms of scope. There are guides out there on creating events, and when we put the event organization guide together, we were in danger of becoming a kind of a bucket for all of these other guides. Oh, they've got something on inclusivity, they've got something on agendas, they have something on this, they have something, you'd have to satisfy everybody to put everything in, and then ultimately you'd end up with something which wasn't useful and a bit unwieldy. So we've scoped the guide to be experiential. Well, what does that mean? Apart from that, that means that it's based on experience, that we actually did this, or we're actually about to do this. So it's that's what's in there. So if you do want to make changes to the actual guide, and suggest changes to the actual guide, just remember that if you're making a suggestion and it's based on some theoretical considerations of project management or community management, then we're less likely to incorporate that than if you said, well, I tried this and actually I found doing this was better for this reason. Then we're more likely to actually, that's the sort of feedback that we're looking to action. And I'll use an in-house example. Currently, the things that we're doing at ideas and feasibility stage are slightly different than that are in the guide, and so we'll be updating that to reflect actually how it's changed for us. Just the kind of the vision moving forward for event organization guide is for it to incorporate different sizes of events, from micro events to collaboration workshop size events. Micro events, 20 people, say, for a couple of hours. Mid-size events, a day or two, 80 people, and then much larger events, 300-400 people plus. And so we do hope to incorporate more of the learnings from the larger events and the micro events into the core guide itself. So if you have experience of running the larger events or even the mid-size events, we know we'd welcome feedback. We're hoping to target the RSE conference for getting input on considerations for a larger event. For example, there's much more focus on committees and in a larger event than there is in a more medium-sized or micro event.
Well, thank you, Shoaib. Thank you, Rachael, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
If you would like to contribute to or read the event organisation guide, you can find the links to it in the description for this podcast. Please do come along to our research software camp focusing on mental health from the 7th to the 18th of November, and keep an eye on our website for information on registration for Collaborations Workshop 2023. Thank you for listening.